Attorney Anthony DiPietro has been involved in filing and arguing compassionate release motions for Lucchese Boss Vic Amuso for a number of years now, and has appeared in a number of post-conviction motions for Amuso as well. In filings associated with Amuso's latest stage incarceration, DiPietro has argued that there are compelling reasons for release under federal sentencing law. Nevertheless, the courts have consistently rejected those motions, citing the seriousness of Amuso's crimes and ongoing concerns regarding his role in the Lucchese family, as well as public safety. Normally, DiPietro builds his argument around Amuso's advanced age, his significant medical decline, the time already served, 30 plus years, and his general inability to reoffend at a high level due to his age and physical condition. He's also pointed out Amuso's lack of recent disciplinary infractions, his long-term adjustment to being incarcerated, and the amount of time that has passed since the crimes were committed. In one of the motions, DiPietro gave an attempt at being the excellent lawyer that he yearns to be, but conversely, displayed himself more as a glorified paralegal and tried using me as one of the reasons that Amuso should be released by stating that I suffer from mental delusions. That motion was quickly denied on August 10, 2023 by Judge Frederick Block, who stated in his decision, Amuso's reign was replete with bloodshed. At Amuso's command, more than a dozen individuals were ordered to be killed, and 9 were actually slain for the purpose of maintaining a criminal enterprise, and added that murder was a tool in Amuso's arsenal, and one that he used regularly in order to advance his business pursuits and ensure that he retained absolute power in the family. Prosecutors naturally argued that despite Amuso's age, he remains a symbolic figure in organized crime history, and that time served does not outweigh the severity of his crimes. From a legal viewpoint, it seems clear that Vic is not getting out based on the crimes that he was convicted of, and the fact that he remains the official Lucchese boss. You would think any lawyer worth their weight would practice integrity and explain to Amuso's family that he has no shot at being released. However, this genius, greedy slimeball just recently filed another motion for compassionate release on behalf of Vic this month. In his latest submission, DiPietro renewed his argument that Amuso was immobile, medically fragile, and dependent on chronic end-of-life care, as well as the usual, stating his age, over 90, and that incarceration is no longer necessary for punishment or as a deterrent. But over and above that, DiPietro offered a personal narrative element involving his own father by describing the emotional impact on him following his father's death in prison. Like these judges give two fucks about that. But okay, for shits and giggles, let's say his personal plea, "Don't let Amuso die in prison, like my father," touches the judge, and he or she finds it to be emotionally compelling. A judge still has to weigh the nature and seriousness of the crimes, respect for the law, and the protection of the public. In Amuso's case, those factors, and the fact that he's a high-ranking member, a boss, one tied to multiple murders, attempted murders, and racketeering activities, outweigh anything. What the pea-brained DiPietro fails to realize, or maybe it's because he skipped too many classes in law school, is that the courts cannot grant release based on fairness and sympathy alone. When it comes to extreme facts, like multiple murders committed and attempted murders, personal narratives come off as weak. Multiple murders, RICO, and long-term control of an organized crime family are what the court considers dominant. All right. Let's take a look at Anthony DiPietro's father. His name was Angelo, and he owned a strip club called Sue's Rendezvous in Mount Vernon, New York, and Green Apple's Eatery, also located in Mount Vernon. Aside from his legitimate business, the elder DiPietro was also an associate to the Albanian mob. DiPietro and some of his associates got fleeced by a Ponzi scheme And in the early 2000s, apparently, an investment advisor, John Perazzo, operated these Ponzi and pyramid schemes, which basically promised high returns to investors, stacking the pyramid, with knowledge that that pyramid would collapse. The Ponzi scheme involves investing people's money with no actual underlying investment. The early investors typically appear to make money, which attracts potential investors, usually family or friends, of the initial investors. Some of the money the new investors put up is used to pay the original investors. So DiPietro and his friends must have invested and weren't too happy when they figured out what truly was going on. Initially, they threatened Perazzo to make good on the money and forced him to pay with threats of violence and violence itself. They had already received payments that exceeded their initial investment. On June 29, 2001, they abducted Perazzo from the Applebee's at the Cross County Shopping Center in Yonkers. They made him get into a white van at gunpoint and drove him to a home formerly owned by DiPietro, where they stripped him and threatened him with pistols, as well as an M80, which they told him would blow his balls off. And while holding a pistol to his head, DiPietro wanted to know where the money was. Perazzo told him that he had it in the trunk of his car, which turned out to be $11,000 that DiPietro later retrieved. At some point, they also entered Perazzo's house and deleted files on his personal computer. During the same time, DiPietro was involved in setting up and carrying out multiple burglaries and home invasions throughout Westchester County. According to court records, some of the robberies and home invasions were the homes of people DiPietro knew, including family members. During one home invasion, 2 women were harmed. DiPietro allegedly told the would-be home invaders, "Try your hardest not to hurt anyone, but if you have to, do what you got to do." Nice guy, right? Another invasion involved DiPietro's son, Anthony, the legal genius. And by the way, he would go on to represent his father on appeals because the elder DiPietro was eventually sentenced to 59 years for extortion and kidnapping. His sentencing judge called his crimes depraved and despicable. He also had another conviction in 2006 on a racketeering case. Angelo DiPietro passed away on January 22nd of this year after suffering a heart attack while serving time at Danbury Federal Prison. If you haven't liked this video yet, please take the time now and give it a like, as it helps with YouTube's algorithm. Anyone who'd like to show their appreciation for videos like this, or more importantly, help me to continue making them, you can donate with the Super Thanks icon down below or through the PayPal Cash App links in the video's description. Let me quickly mention my blog, also called Sitdownnews, especially for those of you who still enjoy reading. The site can be found at sitdownnews.com and is a paid subscription. John Perazzo was arrested and charged in August 2001 for multiple grand larceny charges. Okay, I honestly don't care what narrative certain people push regarding me. They can say I'm mental or delusional or whatever. That's great. I'll be all of that. Here's something else about me. I'm not a lawyer and never attended law school, but even I know these baseless legal arguments, such as, you don't want to see Vic Amuso die in prison like your father did, isn't worth the paper that your law degree is written on. And by the way, Case Law School and Berkeley College should be ashamed to have produced a person like you who calls himself a lawyer. But here's the bottom line. What do you think you are when you submit a motion for compassionate release for the boss of a family, one convicted of multiple murders, and then include a story about your own father who passed away and was convicted of robbing the homes of friends and family, as well as convictions for racketeering, extortion, kidnapping, etc.? You may never admit to it, but my man, it's you who are delusional.